Welcome back to the channel. This is the one we've been waiting for, you guys. All right, we have a lot of interesting things going on to go over today. We're going to spend a good amount of time on EGLD later in the video, so make sure you stick around, but we go over Bitcoin first because Bitcoin affects the entire market. So it really tells us what's happening with the largest part of the entire crypto market supply. Super important, so we always start with Bitcoin and get ready. Okay, here are the topics. So we're first going to go over Bitcoin. Then we're going to go over EGLD. After that, I'm going to tell you about my NFT sale tomorrow. I have 2 NFTs for sale, both of them on the Elrond blockchain. These NFTs I created over a year ago when I really started diving deep into Elrond because I knew that NFTs would be available eventually, and I wanted to be one of the first to create something that I think could have value. And the way that I've done it is I've created 2 NFTs. These 2 NFTs are part of the collection that I called Birth because it was, I don't know if anyone created NFTs before this, but anyways, they have been created, they've been minted, they're going on sale tomorrow. The link to my profile on eMoonspace where I'm gonna sell them is in the description. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you follow me on Twitter to get like exact details and stuff, but it's gonna be 11 Eastern tomorrow, so 1100 Eastern time. Do the conversion in case you wanna buy them. The pricing is gonna be somewhere around 0.8 to 0.9 EGLD for each one. I'm always gonna do my pricing based on adoption. So I've thought of a way to do that. I'm gonna go over that with you later. The other thing we're gonna go over is some very important news with MEX that I just noticed today. I don't know how many other people have seen it. I'm sure a lot of people know about it, but I'm gonna fill you in because I do think it's quite important. And I think that's about it. We may have a few other things that we talk about. We're gonna talk about the infrastructure bill a little bit. We're gonna do the Bitcoin on-chain metrics. So let's just go ahead and get started. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. All of the stuff is in the description for referrals, links, all that jazz, even my social media. You'll find everything. So let's go ahead, let's get moving. And we are gonna switch over to our crypto div view. This is the chart view. All right, let's do it. Okay, so first thing on Bitcoin. All right, we're just gonna take a brief look at the chart. What you're seeing here is that we have a very clear symmetrical triangle pattern showing. Now, the thing about these symmetrical triangles are that you want to see them confirmed a little bit more than twice, right? We've seen it here start at the top, and now we've had one confirmation on this that matches up with the bottoms to give us a perfectly symmetrical triangle. This tells us that if we follow this triangle, we are looking for a breakout somewhere at 70% of the apex. Now, I've started that a little bit early. My breakout is projected to begin on November the 8th. That's only 2 days away. But to be honest with you, if we keep moving down here, we could easily take this line and extend it, right? So this could get extended out this way, and then we could take this all the way to the top, right? So now we are still at the top of this prior top here, this lower high. So this could get extended. If this gets extended, our breakout time frame moves up to November the 12th. I extend them very, very slowly. I don't project it out for a long period of time because I like to extend them when I actually have data to tell me where it's going to be extended to. So based on what we see currently, we still have a breakout target somewhere between November the 8th and November the 9th, somewhere in this area here. That's about 70% of the apex. So keep that in mind. What we really want to see with Bitcoin right now is we want to see it continue to get support on the level it's on. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see this a bit better. All right, so right now it is right at the bottom of the trend line, and to be honest with you, it looks like we're getting resistance on that trend line. That's not a good sign. So if we do keep getting resistance here, look where we are. We are right where the major support is, and we're getting resistance below the major support. So let's do a horizontal line, and we'll see that there. You'll see that this line here actually falls under this area, which is definitely an area that, you know, we need to hold. Because take a look at this, it's below the support. So now we're getting resistance on this entire volume area. So that's gonna be a tough one, right? We gotta break above that, and we wanna break above this. We wanna break above this prior like mini micro low that we set. So we need to get on top of that as well, and that is at the 61,600 level. So seeing Bitcoin break above 61.6, right now, that's like your first sign that we're moving in the right direction. If we continue to get resistance where we are now, don't be surprised if Bitcoin takes a dip. And in my last video, I told you it's possible that we go down to 50 to 55K. I still have my orders down there because I think it's still possible. It's becoming more and more unlikely as we continue to get so much support in these areas. But now that we've fallen below this like 61.6 support line, we definitely are in a position where it's still a possibility. Okay, so we're gonna move on to some of the on-chain metrics, and then we're gonna come back to this chart and I'm gonna give you my targets. Okay, basically right now, the first thing I wanna show you on-chain, okay, hang on, let's switch to the better view so you can see the on-chain metrics. Okay, so in this view, what you're looking at is the exchange reserves. All right, so the exchange reserves, quite simple. For Bitcoin, the exchange reserves are the amount of Bitcoin being held on exchanges, right? It's the amount of Bitcoin that the exchanges have to give to people that are withdrawing, right? So if these are in the exchange wallets, it's their reserve. If you do a withdrawal of your Bitcoin from Coinbase or Kraken or wherever, and you take it to your own cold wallet, well, you're then taking it out of the exchange reserve. Okay, so the exchange reserve now has actually dropped to levels that we haven't seen since about here. So this on the right-hand side is where the exchange reserves are now. The blue line going across tells you the last time it was at this level. So what do we do to take a look at where this fell as far as price goes? We come right here and we just do a vertical line. Now this vertical line points down to a Bitcoin price. And if we look here on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that it says the Bitcoin price in this range was at around 6,400. Now think about that. Right now, the Bitcoin exchange reserve, the amount of Bitcoin held on exchanges, has gone so low that the last time it was at this point, right? The last time the exchange reserves were so low, the price of Bitcoin was $6,400. Right? What happened since then? Well, people started freaking out and selling a lot of their Bitcoin, but the price kept appreciating. So pretty much what you had here is price appreciation and some sell-off. And as this occurred in 2019, the exchange reserve kept going up. Then we had our March crash right here. This was March of 2020. Ever since then, basically what you've been seeing is a clear significant downtrend in the exchange reserve. The exchange reserve has kept dropping, and at the same time, the price of Bitcoin has kept going up. Simple economics here. Basically, what's been happening is in March 2020, the whole pandemic started. People flew out of every asset. They flew out of Bitcoin, they flew out of all the DeFi assets. Everything in the crypto market plummeted. Stocks plummeted. Everything plummeted in March of 2020. Now, at that time, people had to figure out what to do with all this liquidity, right? They took out all this money. Some of them took heavy losses in the stock market, and you started to see a flight to safety. That's when Bitcoin started taking off, hitting new highs, and all the exchange reserves started drying up. And what you're seeing now is that the exchange reserves have continued to go down throughout this. So I know this is not a top here, because if this was a top, then you would have seen the exchange reserves go up. People would be ready to sell. Nobody's ready to sell. Instead, what you're seeing is we had a dip. During that dip, the exchange reserves went up a little bit. And then what happened? The price started shooting again and exchange reserves kept dropping. And this is a pattern that I think you're going to continue to see. Always watch the exchange reserves. All right, let's look at leverage ratio now. All right, hang on. Let me save this real quick. Let's look at, come on, really? Save. Okay, let's go to leverage ratio. So at the leverage ratio, basically this is telling us, this is giving us an indicator of how much leverage is in the market. Okay, and what I want you to do with this usually is look at it at a large time frame, because basically what you're seeing here is that the amount of leverage in the market right now is incredibly high. It's at all-time highs. Now, well, not all-time highs. I don't know how much it was before April, because that wasn't really listed on here. I don't even know if before April 2020 there was a lot of leverage in the market, but there might have been, because it does look like it started quite high. Anyway, right now, as far as the last year and a half goes, we're at an all-time high. Now, what does that mean? That means that volatility isn't going anywhere. If you're seeing Bitcoin being stable right now and exchange reserves are dropping, but leverage ratio is going up, that means more people are trading on leverage. That means more volatility. More than likely, what you're going to see are price swings up and down, possibly in $10,000 increments. And that's going to liquidate a lot of this leverage. I think as the price continues going up, we're going to keep seeing this leverage ratio get a lot more stable. I don't think we're going to keep seeing it just shoot up, because as the price goes up, it's going to take a lot more money to generate the same amount of leverage. So I don't know if people are going to keep going on leverage for Bitcoin at that time. They might. I mean, if it just keeps going parabolic, you'll probably always have people going on leverage and things will drop. So just keep an eye on this. The higher this is, the more volatility we could have, and it is getting higher, but ironically, the price seems to be stabling. But I think you're going to see either a drop in price liquidating a bunch of longs, or you're going to see a huge pump liquidating all the shorts. And I think that's going to continue happening. You're going to keep seeing that, and leverage is going to keep being flushed out of the market. There's just too much money to be made for people that, make moves with large amounts and can go on leverage at the same time. So there's a lot going on. All right, so that's very important. We are at 10 minutes. So let's keep going because I want to finish the chart analysis and get to EGLD. All right, the next thing I want you to take a look at here is the hash rate. Okay, the hash rate is a very interesting thing to look at because this tells us basically the amount of computing power on the Bitcoin network. All right, we're looking at this on the daily time frame. We're going to move it over. So one thing I want you to see here is how things have occurred over the first time we hit 60K versus now. So we had this huge massive pump, right? You have March 2020 down here in blue, and then you have the hash rate continually going up. We hit a top, and then we dropped. Now, when we dropped, why did we drop? This was China banning Bitcoin. When China banned Bitcoin, everything plummeted. We had a 50% drop in hash rate. But what's happened since then is that the price has recovered and the hash rate has recovered right along with it. We're not at the tops that we had hit, but we are basically at the sustainable tops that we were at with hash rate before. So I would say at this point, hash rate has completely recovered. Price completely recovered. And I think what you're going to see now is hash rate going higher and higher and higher. More investments are going into mining corporations. You have a lot of miners setting up shop in the United States and in other countries where they can get cheap renewable energy. And you're going to continue to see the hash rate grow because there's simply too much incentive to ignore. You know what I mean? If you are a country that has abundant natural resources that can provide you energy, then you can monetize it with mining Bitcoin. You can not only monetize it, but you can end up with an investment property that pretty much will continue to appreciate at bare minimum somewhere around 190 to 200% a year. You can't think of a better option than that. It is going to be really the catalyst, in my opinion, to tap natural resources for renewable energy. And as that happens, as countries start realizing, hey, we can use our natural resources to generate electricity for Bitcoin, well, then they can take a portion of that renewable energy and start using it with their population. And suddenly you have the incentive to go renewable and also the means to start deploying that across your country. Everyone has this FUD about how Bitcoin is terrible for climate change and energy and all that. The truth is it could be the best thing because if it allows people a way to monetize their natural resources, well, it gives them incentive to start using those natural resources and getting away from fossil fuels. So I really think that this is something you're going to continue to see going up. The hash rate will keep going up. There's just too much money involved for it not to. And then on top of that, the price will keep going up because monetary policy sucks. Unless you want to hold fiat and just watch your money burn, you better get yourself some Bitcoin. Not financial advice, but just a smart thing to do. Okay, now we also are going to go to net flow. This is the last thing, and then we're going to move on to the chart analysis, which is going to be very quick. It has to be a little longer than usual because I haven't been on for a while. Sorry, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. It's mushroom coffee. Stuff's pretty good. It's called Four Sigmatic. Check it out. I'm not a sponsor. I just heard it on Joe Rogan one day. Okay, so let's see here. We are now looking at net flows. Now, net flows, not super interesting right now. I mean, we're seeing a lot of moves up and down. So you saw here, you had a big move just on the 5th yesterday of about 1,100 Bitcoin being moved onto exchanges, followed by 800 Bitcoin going off of exchanges. And this is kind of what we've been seeing. For every big move onto exchanges, you're seeing moves off exchanges. So more than likely, this is either exchange wallet transfers, but I don't know why they would do it with only 1,000 Bitcoin. Normally they would do it with a lot more, but it's possible, exchange reserves are going down. They might be moving around 1,000 Bitcoin now. 1,000 Bitcoin's a lot. I mean, it's no joke. We're talking, how much are we talking? 1,000, multiply that by what, around 60K right now? $60 million. So that's a lot of money. And you're seeing a very similar thing happen over time. But what is interesting here is that you're seeing less inflows. The trend of inflows is going down while the trend of outflows, even though it's tapering, it is having bigger outflows than we are seeing inflows, at least over the last 24 hours. And we have to account for the fact that a lot of these inflows and outflows could be exchange related. For the most part, though, it seems to me like everything is fairly stable here. And I think what's going to happen is as the price goes up, you're going to see a lot more outflows going out. So this right now is fairly even. Nothing major is standing out with the net flows other than the fact that price seems to be somewhat stable, which is kind of good. I'm glad after the infrastructure bill was passed that we did not see huge inflows onto exchanges. So that's a very good sign that people are not in that much fear of the crypto wording with the tax provisions in the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that passed last night. Okay, that's your on-chain metrics. So now you have a better idea of what's going on chain, right? Hash rates recovering, leverage ratio very high, exchange reserves dropping. So you have more leverage coming into the market. You have the exchanges running out of reserves. You have the hash rate continually going up with no end in sight, to be honest with you. Now we are moving back to the Bitcoin chart, and we are going to look at some price targets and see what do we expect to happen with all the information that we just had, right? Well, we do know right now that we're not seeing massive inflows. So I'm not going to expect a huge, gigantic dump until I see something like that. So I still see Bitcoin as being quite stable here. Now, what we could see is a lot of buying happening because you're now back to around 60,800. You had a top at around 67,000. And a lot of people are expecting BTC to do a lot better over the next month or two. Now, if that's going to occur, you're going to have a lot of people coming in before that. And I think we're going to see some announcements within the next 1 to 2 months from bigger companies or institutions announcing they're holding Bitcoin. And that's going to help a lot because eventually they're going to have to do those things. And I think we're going to see that. So keep an eye on it. But right now for Bitcoin, what I would be watching if I was you is simply the symmetrical triangle. You're going to be looking to see, do we hold the 60,800 level? And do we break above the 62,700 level? The top and bottom of this symmetrical triangle are super important. And honestly, what I would love to see here is a slow rise, maybe up to here, possibly a drop back down to here to around 61.2. And then a breakout a little bit further than I had initially projected. So that would be around, same day, later in the day, right? This is a 1 hour chart. So it'd be later in the day on the 8th. So about 2 days from now. So seeing something like that would be great. But if we just keep moving like this, and then we have a drop like that, and drop like that, well then now you've extended out the triangle and this consolidation is going to continue a bit longer. So keep an eye on that. I'm looking at the consolidation levels. For a buying perspective, my orders are still sitting at the same levels they were before, but they've become a little less likely to occur. So basically now we have taken our 200 exponential moving average. That has come up on the 4 hour chart to the 58,000 level. So normally, even if you have a downtrend, you're going to see some type of support on that moving average. So 58K, 58.7 to 59K might be a decent place to buy if we have a wick down. I don't think we're going to drop below 58,000 until we have a bigger pump. Because we could always have a bigger pump and then have a 20% crash and then just recover within a week. So moves like that can happen. Preparing for them is good because then you get to buy at better prices. So I'd be looking at 58K. If we drop below 58K, I'd be looking at 57K. If we drop below that, then you're looking at a range between 54 to 55. Those are really the key areas. There's no reason to think it's going to go below there now. I do still have a couple of orders like 51, 52, but they're not very big orders. I've moved the liquidity from those bigger orders that were lower up higher. So now I have higher orders sitting at 58, 59, and I have lower orders sitting below 55. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it to buy at a discount, and I've already bought at around 60,500 because I considered that a discount too. So buying at a discount, always a good thing. If you're looking to accumulate Bitcoin, just keep an eye on it because you might get the possibility to buy a bit more at 57 or 55, but if you do, it's going to be short. I think that you'll see a large wick coming down, kind of similar to this. Hang on, let me switch over to the other view. Kind of similar to this right here, right? You'll see like a big wick come down if it drops, and then you'll see the price recover very quickly. This is a very common thing to happen. It flushes out leverage, and the people that are able to buy at that point because they're not scared, they're seeing an opportunity, are usually the ones that end up making the returns. So keep that in mind. That's pretty much what we're looking at for Bitcoin. This is a very, very key level. Bitcoin needs to hold this to decide, is it going to keep consolidating and have a breakout? If it doesn't hold this, then we are looking at the possibility of this turning into a breakdown. And if that happens, then I would expect the bottom to be somewhere in the range that I gave you. Now, one other thing that's very interesting is if we move to the daily chart. Okay, on the daily chart for Bitcoin, I'm going to disable a couple of things here. We'll disable this bars pattern, and we will disable all of this. Okay, so we'll just keep the zones for right now. Now, if we look at this, I want you to look at something very interesting. I put this on my Twitter, but just in case some of you guys don't follow me there. Okay, these are the Bollinger Bands on the daily chart. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. When I zoom out a little bit, you start to see how constricted these blue lines are. These Bollinger Bands are really constricted. Heck, we had a breakout down here, and the Bollinger Bands were like not even half as constricted. Then we go back here when the Bollinger Bands were constricted, we had another major breakout. Well, let's go back. Now we go back to this area here, or I'm sorry, not that one, this area here. This is the closest that we are to now where the Bollinger Bands got this constricted. And look what happened. We had a breakout from 17,000 all the way up to 41,000 within, it started in December the 11th, and by January the 8th. This was within 1 month. We had a massive rise. Our Bollinger Bands are now just as constricted. Now, there are times that your Bollinger Bands get constricted that you can have a dip and keep consolidating and turn into a downtrend. That's possible too. But for the most part, what we have seen in this bull run is that economically, inflation's not over. There's not much of a reason to sell your Bitcoin now. You're not really selling it for anything better if you're moving to fiat. So you would expect that this would be where that price constriction leads to a much bigger rise. Keep an eye on it. I think the Bollinger Bands are very telling, and there have been a lot of breakouts that have occurred right after major constrictions like this. So this is super important to know. Plan accordingly. Make sure you're ready for whatever happens, right? As long as you're ready, as long as you're prepared, you have a plan, then you're good. The people that don't have a plan and then scramble because they're scared, those are the people that need to do some strategizing. The strategy is important. Okay, now, we've spent 20 minutes on Bitcoin. We are going to move forward and we are going to go over to EGLD. EGLD has a lot going on. We got a lot to talk about, so let's do that. This is going to be a long video today, so sit back. Let's enjoy it. All right, next, EGLD. Now, what has EGLD done? All right, EGLD has done something super, super cool. So we're going to go over to a much longer view so you can see the entire chart. We've been putting in this pattern that I must say I'm pretty happy with because we identified this a full week before I saw it anywhere in media, right? I saw an article about this maybe a day ago. This was in my last YouTube video. So we went over this a long time ago, and I'm glad that people are taking notice, that we are recognizing things a little bit earlier than others. So pretty much, what do we see? Well, we see that whenever EGLD on this 4-hour chart has a major uptrend, it hugs the 20 exponential moving average. That's the blue moving average there, right? When it has a downtrend, it falls below the 20. When it has an uptrend, it goes above the 20. Pretty simple. Well, what have we seen with the last two pumps? We saw that we went above the 20 exponential moving average and we kept moving. But then once we got very far ahead of it, we fell right through it and dropped. Well, what are we seeing this time? This time we saw something very, very similar. We're going to zoom in now so you can see it better. We see here, I apologize, got a little bit of a runny nose for some reason. I always get allergies sometimes. Okay, so now we start to see here that we have dropped below, and when we had this pump from around the 250 mark, we broke out. This was really the key area where we were consolidating, and this was, I think, around the time that I told you, hey, I think on my Twitter, I was like, hey, I think we're about to have a breakout because we're getting super constricted. So we did break out, and we bounced right off the 20. Now what's happened is we went well above the 20, kind of like we did here, and now we are dropping back down. The difference is we fell straight through here. This time, we are getting support on the 20. Very, very, very important. Okay, so that's this area right here. You see what's happening with that 20 exponential moving average and how we are hitting against it? Well, to be honest with you, what's happening here looks very similar to what was happening here, right? It looks like the first step of bouncing off of that moving average, maybe hugging that moving average on the way up a little bit, and then having another breakout. So that would mean possibly something like this. And well, that, as you're well aware, could take us well into the upper 300s, possibly higher, because the actual breakout targets are much higher. Let's take a look at those. We're going to go over to the daily chart. Now, on the daily chart, what you see is if we actually broke out of this towards the end of November, like right on Thanksgiving, we're looking at around $430 as a target out of this pattern. That's like the minimum, right? Coming out of a pattern like this. The question is, when are we going to break out? Because we could just do it in the next week or 2 weeks and we could be at that level. Or we could have a consolidation and come back here to like 250 to the bottom of this triangle. Entirely possible, but highly unlikely with what's going on with the exchange. You would assume there's no reason for people to just start selling right now, but the risks can always come to bite you. So be ready for it. Like for me right now, I have this is the daily chart, and I have some orders sitting at very key levels on this chart, right? I have an order sitting at the 20 exponential moving average around 280. I do it a little bit above. So 280, the 20 exponential is at 278. I have another order sitting right at 250. That's right where this moving average is. I didn't even know that's where this moving average was, but that's exactly where it is. That is, look at orange, that's our 50 exponential moving average. All right, that's right here. Now we look here at our 100 exponential moving average. That's at 215. Much less likely I don't have any orders here. Then we have 175 for our 200 exponential moving averages. Our average, far less likely I don't have anything sitting here. I don't think it's going to drop this far. I think what's going to happen is that we're going to get a lot more liquidity coming in. We're going to get a lot more use of the blockchain. We're going to see much higher price rises. Now, keep in mind, volatility is real. So even though EGLD is a scarce asset, right, there are going to be a lot of people in massive profits once we start hitting the 400, 500, 600 levels. Now, what does that mean? Well, a lot of people tell me on Twitter, and they tell me all the time, I'm never selling my EGLD, right? Never going to do it. Not going to sell it. And I commend you for saying that. But I also am not sure if everyone who says that is actually, 100% going to be able to hold to that. Why? Well, because once you start making life-changing gains, the drops can be very stressful. So what a lot of people end up doing is when they have these kind of gains going into, maybe 1,000%, like just massive, massive gains, then they're going to want to take some risk off the table. They're going to want to take some profits. They might use that to buy back when it drops. They might use that to invest in something else, or they might just put it in the bank. So now they can live a better life because they have more money than they did before. So there are always reasons that people have to sell no matter how bullish they are on an asset. Keep that in mind, because when it goes up to those prices, people are going to sell. There are going to be people selling to take profits. There are going to be new buyers coming in. You're going to have a distribution of EGLD. You're going to have EGLD going from a lot of concentrated holders to a lot of smaller new holders coming in that want to buy too. And that's a good thing. You want to see that happen. Even if it happens when the price is at $1,000 or $2,000, whatever, it's always good. It doesn't matter when it happens, but you want to shift distribution of the asset. You want more people staking. You want more people adding liquidity. That's how things are going to grow, because not everyone's going to be able to afford all this EGLD unless it goes really, really mainstream over the next year, which I think is very, very possible. I think a lot more people are going to come in, but I do think you're going to see us hit levels like 450, 430, 500, after which we're going to have small corrections. We might go from 430 back down to 400, and that's completely possible. We do something like that. People have taken profits. New people have gotten in. The price stabilizes. We continue moving. So don't expect it to just go up straight forever. Be ready for the corrections. They're going to come, and they will be big at times, right? When price hits like $1,000, you might see a 50% correction back to 500. That may not seem like a bad thing right now, but for the people buying at 1,000, that's a bad thing. They're going to see their money disappear, and they're going to be very scared if they don't keep holding. So keep it in mind, be ready for profit taking. It's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen until we're above around 400. I think we're going to break 400. I think we're going to be probably closer to the 500 level up at this area here. When you start seeing a drop, like we'll come up, possibly break around 500, we'll top out, and then we may come down and consolidate back to like 350, 400, and then keep moving. And a pattern like that, entirely possible. We put in another long consolidation, and then we go up higher. Possible, but we don't know. we don't know. Things could be a lot more bullish than I think, because if the MEX and the NFT space and all this stuff on Elrond that is now the most cost effective anywhere, with probably the best community out of all these blockchains, you start to see real value. I mean, there's a lot of value in the exchange. There's a lot of value in the EGLD token itself, but I think the most value comes from the community, and the EGLD community is top notch, like top level. You have some of the best contributors. You have people giving you like generally unbiased information, like telling you, hey, don't just buy everything, manage your risk. Like, I see a lot of people saying things like this, and it's really good. Not a lot of communities have that. In other communities, you just say, people say, put everything into this and you'll be fine. Like, no, we manage things well, and I think this community is going to take EGLD to the next level. All right, now something interesting that I want to show you with the MEX. All right, so the Maiar exchange is coming out very, very soon. You can claim your MEX tomorrow, so your MEX tokens. If you've been staking your EGLD, you have a lot of MEX coming to you, and something interesting has changed about that. We're going to take a look. Okay, hang on. You know what? Before we do that, let me just make sure there's nothing else on this chart here. Okay. So, okay, you know what? Let's go back to this and we'll get to MEX in a second. So the one other thing I want to show you here is that keeping an eye on this moving average is really important, but you also really want to keep an eye on the 50 exponential. This is on the 4-hour. That's sitting at around 292 right now. What you really don't want to see is the price to drop below the 50 exponential moving average. If you see that on the 4-hour chart, what's basically happening then is that we're losing the 300 support. So right now, with the exchange just kicking off, that's not what you want to see. So keep an eye on that. I'm going to be looking to put my orders now at around 290 and probably somewhere between 275 and 280. I'm not really going to go anywhere below these levels, just in case we have a freak out drop, something happens, whatever. If it does, I'll be able to pick up some more because, I made the mistake of not doing, like, I bought a bunch when it was down at 270, but I should have bought more. I didn't do my DCAing for the next 2 weeks. So now I've been buying at around 300, 305, 306, like when it's dropped down to those areas earlier, maybe earlier this morning. So I bought a little bit more, but either way, I'm definitely looking to try to purchase more at a good price. So keep an eye on those levels. These moving averages on the 4-hour, super important. But for right now, holding 300, that is key. And when I know that 300 has flipped 100% into support, I'm going to retweet a tweet I did a little while ago that predicted it. So you'll see it coming soon. I'm sure it's going to happen. All right, so that's pretty much the chart with EGLD right now. I can't give you a ton more because we don't have any more volume data, right? We are at an all-time high, and we have no data ahead of us to tell us where exactly the volume levels, support and resistance is going to be. The only thing we know is that we have major support below us at 270. That is where our huge major support is. So I'd be looking anywhere from 270 to 300 to pick up EGLD at a discount just in case there's a dip. But until then, we can go into blue sky breakout as early as tomorrow. People start getting their MEX, transaction counts start going up. You start having more people come in to buy MEX. You could easily see that the price will shoot up very quickly over the next couple of months. So be ready for it, and I wish you the best with it. Let's move on. Okay, so this is the MEX thing. So this is the Maiar.exchange website. Now, one thing I noticed here, let's full screen it. All right, one thing I noticed here is what it says down here. Okay, I want you to read that. It says, the MEX supply has been upgraded from billions to trillions. The newly updated economics can be found here. So go to this website, go to Maiar.exchange, and you can click on that link, and it's going to bring this up. They've done spreadsheets to explain how everything works. That way you know exactly how much MEX you're going to have if you've been staking. Now, there's a very simple way to do it too. Just take whatever amount of MEX you had before that you could have claimed and multiply it by 1,000. That's how much MEX you're going to have. So for example, let's go to a calculator soup. What is this? No, just give me a regular calculator. General math. Come on, really? Okay. Sorry, you guys. Okay, so Google Calculator, that's what we'll use. So pretty much, if you had, let's say, I don't know, 5,000 MEX available a week ago for you to claim. Well, basically what that means now is your 5,000 MEX is going to be multiplied by 1,000, and you are going to have a total of 5 million MEX, right? Pretty simple. So I'll give you another example just to make sure you understand this, because it is very simple math. If you had, 7,942 MEX available, multiply by 1,000, and you are now going to be able to claim 7,942,000 MEX. That's how it's going to work. So they've upgraded it from billions to trillions, and it's going to give you a lot more MEX. Value should still be the same, but it's going to facilitate more transactions. And the way we've seen things happen, who knows? Doing it this way, you might just get a lot more people in trying to buy MEX because they get millions for the same price instead of thousands. People don't seem to understand market caps very well anymore. Anyways, keep that in mind. I thought that was really interesting. So you might have a lot more MEX coming to you than you're expecting, and you should understand why. So that's why. Okay, now we are going to move back to the regular view, and we're going to go over the NFT thing. All right, so these are my... What is this? Looks like someone sent me an NFT. Blizzard. I think he's another content creator on eMoon Space. Thanks, Blizzard. I appreciate that, man. That's a cool NFT. All right, cool. So I have these two NFTs that I'd created. These are both going on sale tomorrow morning, 11 Eastern time. All right, 1100 Eastern, they're going to go on sale. And I'm going to tell you right now how I came up with the price. So I'm going to show that to you in a second. But the reason I like these is because these are the first NFTs I ever created for Elrond. They were created over a year ago in 2020. And basically, they've just been waiting. They've been waiting to be minted on the Elrond blockchain. I minted one on the Ethereum blockchain, and it didn't sell. But the good thing about it is I priced it high enough that I didn't think it would sell, right? I priced it for 1 Ethereum. And the reason I did that is because I kind of didn't want to sell that, and I'm probably going to remove that from sale and just destroy that when the gas fees are cheap enough for me to do it. So this is what these were born for. These were born for the Elrond blockchain. We have one of them here, and then we have this one here. This one is the Shine. This is the one I never showed anyone. I've not used it in any of my YouTube videos, but this was actually my favorite one, and the reason for that is that you can put it on any website, you can put it on anything, and it blends perfectly in with a white background. I mean, I would love to see this on a staking website or something like that, someone using this. Like, if a staking website purchases this NFT from someone and puts it on their website, and you can click on it and takes it back to their inventory, I think that's gonna be really cool. So hopefully we'll see something like that, and we'll see whoever buys these enjoys them. I want to just make very clear, NFTs are very, very risky. These could have a lot of value in the future if they become collector's items, or they could have none. The fact is, for these two, the Birth collection, nothing else is ever going to be added to it. So this is going to be my first collection, and this collection is never going to have any more NFTs added to it. Now, maybe at some point I can create more shields in a separate collection. And that collection, maybe I'll create 10 shields with completely different visuals. And, you know, those may look very different. But the NFTs I'm planning right now for my first 10-piece collection is going to have nothing to do with, like, the logo. You know, it's going to be its own theme. So that's going to be a fun one that I think you guys will enjoy. But these, only 2. There are never going to be more in this collection. This collection's closed. So hope you guys enjoy it. 1100 tomorrow, and I'm going to show you right now how I'm pricing these. So we go to Twitter, and we will go to my profile and go to my media. Okay, so this is how I'm pricing them. So I said here, I thought of a way to price my NFT sales based on eGold adoption. So the formula I'm using is the staked supply of eGold divided by the floating supply of eGold divided by 2. So if you go to growth.elrond.com, what you're going to see on the left-hand side of the, or on the right-hand side of the screen, that's me, hang on. On the right-hand side of the screen, as you see the circulating supply, the staked supply, and the floating supply. And it looks like there's an error with this. It says the staked supply is 0. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so the staked supply is 12.4 million. The floating supply is 7.6 million. If we go back, you'll see the numbers are roughly the same. They've changed a little bit, okay? Basically, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the staked supply, I'm going to divide it by the floating supply, and then I'm going to divide that by 2, and that gives me the price. So that means, based on the numbers I have written here, the price would be 0.82 eGold for each NFT. If the staking supply goes up and the floating supply goes down, well, that means more adoption, right? That means more e-golds going into staking, and the floating supply is being diminished. That's the supply on exchanges and the supply held in wallets that's not staked. So if that is how it works out, well, then the price of my NFTs are going to go up, because that means more adoption. Price is going to be higher. Price of the NFTs will be higher. It's going to be more of a collector's item, because I'm not going to do a lot of NFTs. I'm not going to be putting out thousands of them. You know, in my whole lifetime, I may only have 50 to 100 NFTs. You know, who knows? I might only have 10 for the next 5 years. We don't know. But that's how I'm going to price them. I'm going to make them collector's items. And then if staking goes down and the floating supply goes down, well, then the price is still a little higher than it would be right now. Now, why is that? If the staking supply goes down and the floating supply goes down, well, then the e-gold went somewhere, right? If it's not in the floating supply and it's not in the stake supply, then where is it? Well, it's probably in liquidity, in farming, in MEX, right? People have been putting it into the DeFi system. So if that's the case, I am going to rise the prices because adoption's rising. Now, if staking were to go down and the floating went up, well, then that means people are removing their money from, removing their e-gold from staking. The floating supply is rising, or there's more inflation. And in my eyes, I look at that as adoption dropping. I think we should be seeing the staking numbers go up, the floating numbers go down, and at the same time, we should be seeing more e-gold going into liquidity. If we see that, that's a key hallmark that adoption is rising. So if adoption is lowering, then my NFTs are going to be lower. We're going to make it a better price for everybody. But for right now, I like this formula. This is what I'm going to use. That way it's always fair. I'm never charging something crazy, even if, you know, my items do become collector's items. I mean, if they do become collector's items and the prices go really high, you can never predict these things. Then I might have to adjust this model to charge more for them so I can actually get some value out of putting time in to make them. So right now I'm not really getting much out of it because I've given away more than this on giveaways and just to help people out in my life, like friends and stuff. So anyways, right now that's how things are looking. Price will be 0.82 e-gold for each of those NFTs. Unless the numbers change by morning, I'm going to take the formula and I'm going to apply it right before I post it. So it might be a little bit different, but it should be roughly the same. All right. That's pretty much it, you guys. I think we have gone over everything. I really think we have. We've gone over a lot. The only other thing I want you to know is just keep an eye on everything. All right. One thing that you can't expect to do is to have everything go up forever. We've had a huge run with e-gold. We got the DEX coming. This is the time to be bullish, and it is the time to be strategic. You always, always, always have to be strategic. The people who aren't strategic in these times are the people who get burned. So be ready. Be ready for anything. If e-gold was to drop, what's your plan? If e-gold was to go up to 400, 500, 600 in the next week, what's your plan? Have a plan. All right, that's all you can do. If you do that, you're going to be much better off than you would be if you didn't plan for anything. So make sure you plan. 42 minutes in today's video, you guys. This is what happens when now I can only make like one video a week. I don't have time for too much more. So you're going to get longer videos if we have the need for them. I'll end it by saying one thing. I think we are not too far away from seeing e-gold break 400. I think it's going to happen sooner than people think. I think it's possible that it could go much higher than that if people don't want to sell their e-gold. You know, if that happens, then the supply on exchanges, just like Bitcoin, is going to keep dropping. Now, the floating supply is what you look at to know how much e-gold there is. We know right now there's around 7 million floating. Well, you never know. In the next year, that could drop by half. Adoption could skyrocket. And if it does, expect big things. All right? But be ready for anything. Be ready for anything. No moon boy talk here. Just be ready for it. All right? Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Hope you participate in the sale tomorrow. I mean, there's only 2 NFTs, so whoever clicks first, I guess, is going to get it. Whoever can complete their transaction first. So good luck to everybody. I hope you guys enjoy it. And if they don't sell, no biggie. It's not a big deal. I'm going to keep creating them. So if anyone does want to buy them, you always have the opportunity. It's always going to be for the community. We'll see what happens next. And I'll see you guys again soon. We got more content coming. Check my Twitter. You'll see about it. All right? Peace out. Have a wonderful weekend.